Hello and welcome to day one of Vlogstice. My name is Cara. My pronouns are they, them, and she, her. It is December 2024, and after 7 years, Vlogstice is back. Now, what is Vlogstice, you may be wondering? About 7 years ago, I don't know exactly when it started, but I think that's when I became aware of it and decided to participate in my own way. A lot of other YouTubers were doing something they called Vlogmas, where they would vlog every day in December leading up to Christmas. Since I celebrate the winter solstice, I thought it would be fun to do this up until winter solstice, therefore I called it Vlogstice, vlogging solstice. But every day didn't really work for me at the time. It still doesn't really work for me. So when I did it for the first time back in 2016, I decided to do mine every other day in December leading up to the solstice. I did it again in 2017, and then it turns out I never did it again until now. And I was not planning on doing Vlogstice this year. It's already midway through December. I just recently moved. There is still a lot of stuff going on. I am still surrounded by boxes. I've just put together a little background behind me just to have something fun to look at. I don't have a lot of festive things out and about already, but I have a few pillows that belonged to my grandmother that are kind of festive. I don't have all of my belongings here. So I really wasn't planning on doing anything for Vlogstice, but then a few nights ago I started thinking, what if I did? And what would I do? Because now it's already about a week into the month when I started thinking of this, and it came to me, why not just do a video for every letter in Vlogstice, which there are 9 of, and just do the 9 days leading up to solstice. 9 is a pretty magical number that we talk about a lot in witchcraft and paganism. It's 3 times 3. So I thought that's kind of a fun thing to go off of. And then I took it a step further. Why not theme every day's vlog after something that starts with the first letter of each letter in Vlogstice? So day 1 is V, and we are making vegan cocoa. That is something that makes sense for me, but I also posted on the community page here on my YouTube channel, on my Instagram, which is also cutewitch772, and on my Patreon, cutewitch772, I posted some graphics including the list of themes that I'm going to use for Vlogstice for the next just over a week. And I also did a second image with a bunch of other word suggestions. So if you want to play along, but maybe choose some different words, there's some other inspiration there for you. Maybe there are even words that I'll use in future years if I want to do this again. So vegan cocoa is something that made sense for me because this is something that I do as an annual tradition. It's a personal tradition. The first snow of every season that actually sticks on the ground for a while, I make hot cocoa from scratch. A lot of the mixes out there have dairy already in them. They include milk powder, so I can't have those. And it's really easy to make it vegan friendly. I have done a video about it on my channel before, talking about how I make it, but I've also brought it here today so we can do it together while I talk a bit about Vlogstice and what's been going on. So to make this version, Cara's version of a vegan cocoa, you just need some kind of baking cocoa that doesn't have milk in it, just a pure baking cocoa. This is just what happens to be in the house that my housemates had. You need some kind of sweetener if you're not a fan of just the pure cocoa taste. So this is kind of optional. This is up to you. I like to sweeten it with something because I don't like just the pure cocoa bitter chocolate. In this case, I have some cane sugar, but I also have agave nectar, maple syrup, any type of sweetener that you would normally use. You're going to use that to balance out the bitterness that you may taste from the cocoa. But again, if you like the taste of pure cocoa, you can omit the sweetener. We're also going to need a non-dairy, in my case, milk. I have an unsweetened vanilla non-dairy milk here. And you're also going to need to heat it, which I have done in my electric kettle, and I have it sitting down here so that it's ready to go next to me. I have a little 1 teaspoon scooper here. I have a spoon to stir. I have a little dish to rest the spoon on so that it doesn't get all over everything. And we're using a clear mug today because I thought that's more fun for a little demonstration. I don't do things like this very often, but I also just recently got this table. It's actually a sit-stand laptop table I'm really excited about. So I thought I would use it and set things up and make it like a little cooking show. I also have a little treat over here, and one of the only festive sort of decorations that I did already have, and I knew where it was, I don't know if it's going to focus on it, but this is a little snowman dressed in a jack-o'-lantern sweater with a trick-or-treat bag, and I'll get to some of this other stuff in a minute. I like to start with 2 or 3 teaspoons of the baking cocoa, depending on how big my mug is. For this one, I'm just gonna do 2, or maybe even like 1.5, because I'm just doing a single mug, and it's not very big of a mug. But if I'm making this in like a big mug, I would use more, or if you're making a whole pot of it, I've also made this in a whole teapot before, and then poured it out of the teapot. But for this, I'm just gonna do 2 teaspoons. And I'm gonna do at least an equal amount of my sweetener, if not a little bit more. I like it sweet. So yeah, it turns out I haven't done Vlogstice in 7 years. I did not realize that, but I was going back through my uploads looking for my previous Vlogstice videos on my Patreon, and there were none after 2017. I was so confused, but I watched a couple of them. I watched back the first one. Wow, truly blast from the past. I was working on a Christmas-themed theater production at the time. I was stage managing a theater show. So it was very festive that year that I decided to do Vlogstice. It was the first and only time that I've had a real tree for the holidays, because we had real trees on set of the show that I was working on. Next, I'm gonna add my hot water, just a little bit, covering the cocoa and sweetener so that I can start to melt and dissolve them, and that's what we have our spoon for. Yeah, so I was working on that show, and it was a really fun time. It's hard to believe it was that long ago. So I used to be in community theater. I was an actor and stage manager primarily, but I've also directed, choreographed, done lighting and other tech stuff. A little bit in college I did some costuming. Not as much making of costumes from scratch, but I did some costuming, like acquiring costume pieces, doing costume design, but not making the things. There is a difference. I do sew, but I'm not like that super talented at clothing design. It's just not something I've really put that much effort into learning more specifically. But for this particular production that I was doing during Vlogstice, I was stage managing. And those of you who have been watching for a long time, first of all, thank you so much for still being here. But second of all, you might remember that I used to talk about those shows that I was doing a lot because I was doing a lot of shows. And the woman that I most often worked with, who I stage managed for the most often, there were sort of 2 directors. There was a man and a woman who I most often worked with. But the woman who I did a lot of shows with, I recently learned that she has passed away a couple of years ago. I wasn't in super close contact with them for a while, obviously, because I found out quite a bit after the fact, but yeah, one of my director friends who I worked with for a long time is now on the other side. So given that the first Vlogstice I ever did was during a show where I was working with her, I want to dedicate this episode of Vlogstice partially to her, to my lovely friend Patty, and also to my grandmother, who some of you know if you've been around for the past 5-6 years now. How long has it been? She was in a lot of my videos over the years. I lived with her for a while while I was making videos, but also I would go visit a lot, so I had a lot of videos with her. And my grandmother passed away a number of years ago now as well. And this little milk pitcher with the little kitten belonged to my grandmother. So this is what I've chosen to have our milk today. So I'm gonna add that. And if you can heat the milk ahead of time, of course that helps too. I didn't, because I didn't want to heat it in this. I could have heated it in something else and poured it in here, but I just let it be cold from the refrigerator. So I'm gonna top it off with a little bit more of the water that I heated earlier. But you could also heat the milk ahead of time on the stove, or if you have like a milk steamer, something like that would work too. I actually do have access to one of those now in the house, but I chose not to do it that way because I wanted to do it here with you all, just a simple way, the way that I would have originally done it before I had access to a steamer frother situation. So now that we have our cocoa, a toast to trying new things, to bringing back old things that we loved, to you, the viewers, both new and old, returning, haphazard, constant, wherever you find yourself, to my grandmother, to my director friends, to the theater, to YouTube, to my 2 cats, who will inevitably show up in videos. Hi! One of them is here right now. To keeping them away from the equipment long enough to successfully create a video and not have to reset it multiple times. To Batty, another longtime friend of the channel. Hello. To the things that are hard, the things that are difficult, the things that require change that does not immediately feel good, but creates space for things that are better. to the people we love and the people we choose to celebrate, to the things that are good, the things that can be smooth and easy if only we let them, to sweetness, as much of it as you like. Cheers. So the last thing I have on the table today is a little dish here of buckeyes. I made buckeyes for the first time. These are a little dessert that are made to look like buckeyes. I am from Ohio, so buckeyes are a big dessert, especially around the winter holidays there. And this is the first time I ever tried my hand at making them. It's rather simple. They are essentially sweet peanut butter balls dipped in chocolate, and they're partially dipped, and you leave a space where you can see the peanut butter so that it looks like a buckeye. It's a whole lot of peanut butter with a whole lot of powdered sugar, a little bit of butter. I used margarine, a non-dairy butter, and then dipped in semi-sweet dark chocolate chips. I just looked up the recipe online. There's no like specific recipe that's from my family or anything like that. So if you're curious, just look it up online. It's a no-bake recipe. Super simple, but I will say I did all the mixing by hand and it took a very long time. The recipe that I found, the blog said prep time 15 minutes. In what universe? They must have been using a hand mixer or a stand mixer. Nope, I did it by hand with a whisk and then a baking spatula. The baking spatula really was the MVP of the situation. The recipe I made said it would make 48 of them. I made them in varying sizes so that people could choose a little bit more, like what ratio of peanut butter to chocolate do you want? But I think I overall just made mine a lot smaller maybe than the person who was making the recipe, because the same amount of all of the ingredients that they said would make 48, I made 72. I wanted to have a lot of them to continue to enjoy over time, and I did get that. They are very sweet. There's a lot of sweet chocolate on this table right now, although I didn't make this overly sweet. I did do just the same amount of sugar to the cocoa this time, and it's pretty darn good, maybe because this is also a vanilla milk, so there's a little vanilla flavor too. But yeah, as I've talked about on my channel a little bit, I was living in the desert for the last 2 years, so I haven't gotten to do my first snow of the season hot cocoa. I haven't worn this sweater in over 2 years, so I was very excited to get this back out of my storage and wear it again because I just like it. So yeah, I'm excited to get back into doing Vlogstice. This is also Friday the 13th. Happy Friday the 13th. I am actually recording this on the 13th. It's after midnight. I started this around 1 a.m. I want to make sure that I do them in enough time to then be posted on the day that they're supposed to be for. So I probably will be recording these a little bit in advance, like the day before, or like I am now, just the night before, but really late at night, because that's when I'm usually up working, doing my editing, working on various things. There's more information about other stuff in the description of my videos, but you can support my channel and the rest of the work that I do on my Patreon. I also now have set up a Ko-fi for one-time support. I will be setting that up as another option for recurring monthly support, but it's not set up as of the time of this recording. But the links are in the description. I also have a second channel now where I do gaming stuff. Primarily if you're interested in The Sims 4, but also if you want to see what other things I get up to that will probably all be magical, witchcraft related, pagan related games. I have a full playthrough of one of my favorite pagan games on there right now, Barrow Hill, and I'm looking forward to playing the sequel and putting it on that channel later. And I have some other things already in mind, but I just started that channel at the end of last year. So if you're not already subscribed over there and that's content that you would be interested in, go check that out too. Links in the description. There's going to be stuff in the end screen. And I'm still working on like a new website to put information on so it's easier to find information about tarot readings and classes and workshops and other things like that that I offer. But I'm looking forward to the next, I guess 8 days technically after this one. This video is a little bit longer because I was also making cocoa, but my intention for the rest of these is for them to be not super long videos and probably not very highly edited or super produced things. This is probably gonna be the one that has the most like setup involved. So we'll see what comes up after this, but I'm excited to look at Vlogstice in a new way, and now I'm gonna get to editing this. So thank you very much for watching and or listening to this video. I will see you next time, which will be tomorrow-ish. I can't often say that. And until then, don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye. Cheers. Nebula, what are you doing over there in the box? Be careful, honey. You're also gonna make a lot of noise in the background.